They won't admit it, but I've been talking about it for months.
Stephen A. Smith just leaked Brittany Griner's private medical records, claiming she's actually a man. But here's the wild part. This all ties back to her arrest in Russia, and the reason behind the leak is even crazier. Let me break it down. The shocking claim. Before we get into the weeds, let's establish what we're dealing with here. We've got Stephen A. Smith, ESPN's biggest personality, who literally just secured a $100 million contract, going head-to-head with one of the WNBA's most dominant and controversial figures. On June 5th, 2025, Stephen A. Smith appeared on the Valuetainment podcast hosted by Patrick Bet-David, where he discussed what he thought was a legitimate quote from Brittany Griner criticizing American sports fans. Plot twist. This quote was completely fabricated and came from a satirical Instagram account called The Sports Memory. Yeah, you heard that right. Stephen A. Smith, a man who gets paid millions to analyze sports and current events, fell for a parody account. And this isn't even his first time getting duped. Smith had previously been deceived by another satirical account called NBA Centel, showing a concerning pattern of not fact-checking his sources. Now here's where this story takes a complete left turn. Somehow, this incident involving a fake quote about fan interactions got twisted and morphed into claims about medical tests and gender revelations. Brittany Griner stands at an imposing 6'9" inches and has been absolutely dominant in women's basketball for over a decade. She's a 3-time Olympic gold medalist and 6-time WNBA All-Star, currently playing for the Atlanta Dream. But more than her athletic achievements, Griner became a household name for all the wrong reasons when she spent 10 months in a Russian prison after being detained for cannabis possession, only to be released in a high-profile prisoner exchange involving Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout. This created an environment where any negative story about Griner would get amplified by people who already disagreed with the prisoner swap or her previous political stances.
First things first, respectfully, Brittany Griner was in a Russian prison. You would think that somebody who is now free, back in America, on home soil, would not have too much to complain about, especially something like this.
This wasn't just a casual comment. Stephen A. went full attack mode on Griner during what appears to be a heated debate about the WNBA.
And then, clearly she's not remembering who they let out to get her back.
The Merchant of Death.
The Merchant of Death. An arms dealer that wanted to kill American citizens, according to the reports. That's who they let out for her.
He basically called her ungrateful for being released. But here's what makes this situation even more complex. The timing couldn't have been worse for Griner, who was already dealing with renewed speculation about her identity. In May 2025, a viral video of Griner speaking courtside reignited discussions on social media due to the depth of her voice. The internet being what it is, this led to fresh conspiracy theories and harmful speculation from people who apparently have nothing better to do than argue about athletes' biology online. And somehow, Stephen A.'s fake quote controversy got mixed up with these gender conspiracy theories, creating the false narrative about leaked medical tests. What's really frustrating about this entire situation is how it overshadows legitimate discussions about media responsibility and fact-checking. As of July 15th, 2025, neither Smith nor ESPN has issued a public apology or correction for spreading the misinformation, which basically gives a green light for this kind of sloppy journalism to continue. Real talk, the sports world has a seriously problematic pattern that goes way beyond Brittany Griner's current drama. When female athletes absolutely dominate their sport while having physical traits that don't fit society's basic definition of feminine, they end up defending not just their game, but literally their entire identity as women. This isn't some new internet trend. This toxic behavior has been ruining elite women's sports for decades, and it's honestly giving major small-minded energy. The speculation around Griner is giving perfect example vibes of this mess.
It wasn't until yesterday that I saw a video of her speak, and it just hit me. I was like, wait, that's not a woman, that's not a female, that's not even a trans person, that is a man. Like, that's a legit biological man.
This type of reaction, based purely on how someone looks and sounds, shows how people will literally make up entire conspiracies about athletes who don't fit their narrow aesthetic expectations of what women should be. The speaker keeps going with their unfounded takes.
And he said, no, I don't know who this guy is. Which is funny because me and him were discussing Brittany Griner, and he was defending Brittany Griner and saying that she should be released.
This reveals how even people defending athletes can get completely swayed by appearance-based assumptions. It's giving major "I support you, but also" energy. Caster Semenya's situation is literally the blueprint for this type of athletic discrimination. This South African track queen absolutely demolished the 800-meter event with her speed and power, but instead of celebrating her dominance, she got caught up in legal drama that had zero to do with performance enhancement or cheating. Her naturally high testosterone levels became this whole international debate, leading to regulations that would basically force her to take hormone-suppressing meds just to keep competing. The conspiracy theories always go beyond just physical observations, too.
And with current trend and propaganda of gender banding, filling up every government position with either trans or, LGBTQXYZ people, and promoting that kind of stuff to children.
This shows how individual athletes become pawns in broader culture war nonsense that has literally nothing to do with their actual achievements or personal lives. It's giving major "everything is a conspiracy" vibes. The double standard is absolutely unhinged. Imagine punishing someone for being too naturally gifted at their sport. The Court of Arbitration basically told one of the world's greatest runners that her biological advantages were somehow unfair. Meanwhile, male athletes with exceptional natural traits get celebrated, not regulated. Michael Phelps wasn't forced to modify his freakishly long wingspan or his body's ability to produce less lactic acid than regular humans. But Semenya was expected to chemically alter her natural hormones because other people felt uncomfortable with her being that dominant. Make it make sense. Serena Williams dealt with a different flavor of this same toxic energy throughout her legendary career. Her muscular build and powerful playing style became constant discussion topics in ways that male players' physiques never were. Comments about her appearance weren't just from random haters online. They came from fellow athletes, sports commentators, and media personalities who apparently couldn't separate her historic achievements from their limited ideas about what women should look like. The speculation often includes absolutely unhinged theories about detention and international politics.
Was she a part of that puzzle? Was she a pawn in that gender banding game? Was it the real reason why she got detained and arrested?
These conspiracy theories show exactly how far people will go to avoid accepting that exceptional female athletes are simply that, exceptional women who happen to be elite at their sport. The pattern is honestly giving major red flag energy when you look at all these cases together. Female athletes who are tall, jacked, powerful, or have deeper voices get subjected to gender verification speculation that has absolutely nothing to do with their actual identity or biology.
This is just, something that's based on what my eyes can see and what my ears can hear. So I recommend that you watch an interview with Brittany Griner and tell me what you think. But I was really shocked that was Brittany Griner, because my initial reaction was, wait, that's a dude.
This toxic behavior hits different when you factor in race and sexuality, creating even more layers of discrimination for athletes who are already dealing with multiple forms of bias. Black women athletes especially get subjected to more intense questioning about their femininity, which reflects broader racist stereotypes about Black women. It's giving major intersectional discrimination vibes. This pattern completely overshadows the absolutely insane achievements of these athletes. Instead of celebrating Semenya's record-breaking times, Williams's 23 Grand Slam titles, or Griner's basketball dominance, the conversation gets hijacked by irrelevant speculation about their bodies and identities. These queens deserve their flowers, not conspiracy theories. What's really tragic is how quickly misinformation spirals into conspiracy culture. Stephen A. fell for a fake quote. Somehow that bloomed into fake claims about gender, medical leaks, and political agendas. All of it distracts from what matters, her achievements and humanity. And despite repeated fact checks by outlets like Newsweek and PolitiFact, people cling to lies that confirm their biases. So why is this kind of controversy so believable? To answer that, we have to go back to where it all started. The Russia saga. Let's set the scene. On February 17, 2022, Brittany Griner was detained at Sheremetyevo International Airport near Moscow after Russian authorities found vape cartridges containing hashish oil in her luggage. She was traveling to join her professional team, UMMC Yekaterinburg, during the WNBA offseason, which is totally normal for players trying to supplement their income because, let's be real, WNBA salaries aren't exactly NBA money. But here's where the timing gets absolutely crucial and honestly terrifying. Her detention occurred just days before Russia's invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, which escalated geopolitical tensions to levels we hadn't seen since the Cold War. Former Pentagon official Evelyn Farkas immediately expressed concern that Russia might use Griner as a high-profile hostage in response to international sanctions. And honestly, that's exactly what happened. The substance they found? Vape cartridges containing hashish oil, a marijuana concentrate with high THC concentration, which Griner had been prescribed for medicinal purposes in Arizona. But in Russia, this stuff is absolutely illegal with zero tolerance, and she probably didn't realize the legal implications because different countries have wildly different drug laws. What's really wild is how this detention became a geopolitical chess piece. In May 2022, the U.S. State Department classified Griner's case as wrongfully detained, which is government speak for, this isn't actually about the crime, this is political. That designation is huge because it triggers intensified diplomatic efforts and basically tells Russia that America knows what's really going on here. The trial itself was a complete joke. Griner's pre-trial detention was extended multiple times, with her trial finally beginning on July 1, 2022, and ending with a conviction on August 4, 2022, sentencing her to 9 years in a penal colony. 9 years for vape cartridges that would barely get you a fine in most U.S. states. The political motivation was absolutely obvious. But here's where things get really dark. During her imprisonment, Griner faced horrific conditions, including being forced to make uniforms for Russian soldiers, as detailed in her 2024 memoir, Coming Home. She literally had to sew clothes for the military that was actively fighting against Ukrainian forces supported by her own country. The psychological warfare aspect of this is absolutely insane. She also spoke about contemplating suicide in the early weeks, highlighting the psychological toll, but decided against it out of fear that her body would not be returned to her family. Imagine being in a foreign prison, used as a political pawn, and your biggest fear isn't even death, but that your family won't get closure. That's genuinely heartbreaking. Now here's where the conspiracy theories started going absolutely viral. During this high-profile detention period, the "she's a man" conspiracy theory, which had existed before but was relatively contained, suddenly gained massive traction on social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter. The global media coverage and political tension created the perfect environment for these harmful rumors to spread like wildfire.
It wasn't until yesterday that I saw a video of her speak, and it just hit me. I was like, wait, that's not a woman. That's not a female. That's not even a trans person. That is a man. Like, that's a legit biological man.
This type of reaction was happening while Griner was literally imprisoned and unable to defend herself. The timing couldn't have been more cruel or opportunistic. Fact-checking organizations, including PolitiFact, Snopes, and USA Today Fact Check, had to investigate these claims in August 2022 and concluded unequivocally that Griner is a biological female. Their findings were supported by her birth certificate, public medical records, and statements from family members and medical professionals, leaving absolutely zero credible evidence for the conspiracy. But social media doesn't care about facts when there's engagement to be had. Posts from 2022 to 2025 continued to propagate the theory, with some users claiming Russia might have threatened to release DNA proof of her being male, which is a claim with absolutely no basis in reality. The conspiracy theories got so wild that people were making up entire scenarios about international DNA testing threats. Meanwhile, the real diplomatic drama was absolutely intense. Negotiations between the US and Russia involved discussions of a prisoner swap, with Russia demanding the release of Viktor Bout, a notorious Russian arms dealer serving a 25-year sentence for conspiracy to kill American citizens. This dude was literally known as the Merchant of Death and had been imprisoned since 2010 for arms dealing and terrorism-related charges. The prisoner swap negotiations were incredibly complex because the U.S. initially resisted, partly due to concerns about leaving Paul Whelan, a former Marine also detained in Russia on espionage charges, behind. The Biden administration was essentially being forced to choose which American to bring home first, which is an impossible decision that nobody should have to make. Mounting public and media pressure, including advocacy from WNBA players, NBA stars, and political figures, pushed the Biden administration to prioritize Griner's release. The campaign to free her became a massive social movement, with celebrities, athletes, and politicians all weighing in. But this increased visibility also amplified the conspiracy theories about her identity. What's particularly insidious is how these theories intersected with legitimate political debates about the prisoner swap. People who opposed the exchange for political reasons found common ground with those spreading gender-based conspiracy theories, creating a toxic mix of geopolitical criticism and personal attacks on Griner's identity.
Was she a part of that puzzle? Was she a pawn in that gender banding game? was it the real reason why she got detained and arrested?
This shows how conspiracy theorists were literally creating alternate explanations for her detention that had nothing to do with reality, but everything to do with their own cultural obsessions. On December 8, 2022, the prisoner swap was finally finalized, and Griner was released in exchange for Victor Bout. President Biden announced her release, stating she was on a plane and would be home within 24 hours. Her wife, Sherelle Griner, expressed relief at a news conference, saying, "Today is just a happy day." But even her release became controversial. The swap was heavily criticized by some who argued it set a dangerous precedent for negotiating with hostile nations, and that trading a dangerous arms dealer for a basketball player wasn't worth it. Conservative commentators especially went hard on this angle, with some suggesting she didn't deserve to be rescued because of her previous protests against the national anthem. The conspiracy theories that exploded during this period show how global events can become fuel for completely unrelated misinformation campaigns. The "she's a man" theory, which had roots in her height, 6'9", and deep voice, suddenly became part of broader cultural debates about gender, sports, and American values. People who had never heard of Brittany Griner before suddenly had opinions about her biology based on conspiracy theories.
This is just, something that's based on what my eyes can see and what my ears can hear. So I recommend that you watch an interview with Brittany Griner and tell me what you think. But I was really shocked that was Brittany Griner, because my initial reaction was, wait, that's a dude.
This perfectly encapsulates the "trust me bro" mentality driving these conspiracy theories. People making definitive claims based on nothing more than their personal reactions to videos. The psychological impact on Griner during this period must have been absolutely devastating. Not only was she dealing with the trauma of wrongful imprisonment and being used as a political pawn, but she was also watching conspiracy theories about her identity spread across the internet while she was powerless to respond. The Russia saga should have been a story about diplomatic negotiations, prisoner rights, and international relations. Instead, it became fuel for gender-based harassment that continues to this day. The bigger picture. Now let's shift gears and talk about what often gets lost in all this controversy: the absolute athletic dominance and personal journey of one of basketball's most compelling figures. Because while everyone's arguing about fake quotes and conspiracy theories, they're missing the incredible story of a woman who's literally rewriting the record books while dealing with challenges most people couldn't even imagine. Let's start with some mind-blowing numbers that show just how special Brittany Griner really is on the basketball court. Her WNBA career statistics are absolutely ridiculous. 315 games, all starts, with averages of 17.7 points, 7.4 rebounds, 1.9 assists, and 2.6 blocks per game. But it's not just the numbers. It's how she's revolutionized the center position in women's basketball. She's third in WNBA history in total blocks, 812, and holds the single-game record with 11 blocks. Her season record of 129 blocks in 2014 is just absurd. That's more than 4 blocks per game over an entire season. For context, most elite shot blockers in the NBA average around 3 blocks per game, and that's against shorter competition.
And everything I'm bigger, I'm 6'8", a little bit stronger. I think everybody see I'm a little bit stronger.
Her college career at Baylor was even more dominant. She holds the NCAA record for career blocked shots with 748, and is the only female player to record 18 career dunks. She was the first player in NCAA history to record 2,000 points and 500 blocks, which is like being great at both offense and defense at a level no one had ever achieved before. The accolades keep coming. She won AP National Player of the Year twice, 2012, 2013, the Naismith Trophy, Wade Trophy, and Wooden Award multiple times. At Baylor, she led the team to a national championship in 2012 and was named Most Outstanding Player of the Final Four. But her impact goes way beyond college and professional basketball. Internationally, she's been absolutely dominant for Team USA, winning 3 Olympic gold medals, 2016, 2021, 2024, and 2 FIBA World Cup gold medals, 2014, 2018. She scored 30 points in the 2020 Tokyo Olympic gold medal game, showing up when it mattered most on the world's biggest stage. Her overseas career has been equally successful. She won 4 EuroLeague championships, 2016, 2018-19, 2021, and 3 Russian League championships, 2015-17, which is what led her to Russia in the first place, and ultimately to her detention.
The NBA, have you thought about competing in the NBA, or at least trying out?
Mark Cuban actually said he would consider it, and I actually would try out.
This quote shows her confidence and ambition. She's literally considered trying out for the NBA, which would make her the first woman to even attempt such a thing in the modern era. That's the level of athletic ability and self-belief we're talking about here. But behind all these achievements is a personal story that's way more complex than most people realize. Griner has been open about facing bullying and harassment throughout her life because of her appearance. In her 2015 memoir, In My Skin, My Life on and Off the Basketball Court, she wrote about being called a boy at school and the long-term psychological impact of such treatment. The speculation about her gender isn't new. It's something she's dealt with her entire career. Recent viral videos, particularly one from May 2025 where her deep voice surprised fans, reignited discussions on social media. But what people don't understand is the psychological toll this takes on someone. Her personal life has also been marked by significant challenges. In 2015, she and then fiancé Glory Johnson were arrested following a domestic violence incident at their home in Arizona. Both pled guilty to disorderly conduct, and Griner entered a 26-week domestic violence counseling program. The incident led to a 7-game WNBA suspension for both players. Her stance on social justice issues has also drawn controversy. In 2020, Griner called for the WNBA to stop playing the national anthem during games as a protest against police brutality and for Black Lives Matter. She remained in the locker room during the anthem, which drew criticism from some who later used this against her during her Russian detention. The Russian detention itself was a nightmare that changed her perspective completely. She spent 10 months in harsh conditions, forced to work from sunrise to sunset, making uniforms for Russian soldiers, dealing with frigid temperatures and spider infestations. She even contemplated suicide during her imprisonment.
Brittany Griner for the Phoenix Mercury. She's decided to step away from basketball, leave of absence for mental health. First of all, God bless you. All the best to you, Brittany.
The mental health struggles are real and ongoing. Griner has had to take breaks from basketball to address the psychological impact of everything she's been through. She's been open about the trauma from her Russian detention and how it affected her worldview. The prisoner exchange that secured her release was controversial because it involved trading Victor Bout, known as the Merchant of Death, a Russian arms dealer who had plotted to kill American citizens. Some people, including former President Donald Trump, criticized the swap, with Trump calling her an awful America-hating WNBA player. Despite all the controversy and challenges, Griner continues to excel and advocate for others. She became the first openly gay athlete to land an endorsement deal with Nike in 2014, breaking barriers in sports marketing. She's also engaged in community service, starting BG's Heart and Soul Shoe Drive in 2016 to provide shoes to homeless people. Her marriage to Sherelle Watson in 2019 has provided stability, and they now have a son named Bash. The family has been through incredible challenges together, with Sherelle becoming a vocal advocate for Griner's release during the Russian detention. Still, what's particularly interesting is how the fake quote that Stephen A. fell for actually plays into real concerns about the WNBA's growth. The satirical post about Griner complaining about crowds and attention was designed to mock the idea that players might not want increased popularity. But the reality is much more complex. The WNBA has struggled for decades to gain mainstream attention and financial stability. Now that it's finally getting that attention, thanks largely to players like Caitlin Clark, there are legitimate questions about how to manage that. Growth sustainably. Some veteran players do feel overlooked as new stars get disproportionate attention, and that's a real dynamic that the league needs to address. But using fake quotes to criticize players who've made enormous sacrifices for their sport is completely counterproductive. Brittany Griner spent nearly a year in Russian detention, suffered through psychological torture, and came back to continue her career despite ongoing harassment and speculation about her identity. The truth is, rumors about Griner's gender are unfounded and driven by societal biases rather than facts. The deeper issue here is how these conspiracy theories intersect with legitimate discussions about women's sports. The WNBA is at a crossroads. It's experiencing unprecedented growth, but also facing internal tensions about how that growth is distributed. Some of the most talented players in the league's history, many of whom are Black women, feel like they're being overshadowed by newer players who happen to fit certain demographic profiles that appeal to broader audiences. This is actually a complex and important conversation about race, gender, and media coverage in sports. But when fake quotes and conspiracy theories enter the mix, they poison the well and make it impossible to have productive discussions about real issues. What's particularly frustrating is how Stephen A. Smith's broader analysis of the WNBA actually contains some valid points about the league's dynamics and challenges. His understanding of the resentment some players feel toward Caitlin Clark's outsized attention is legitimate, and his business advice about riding the wave of popularity makes sense from a revenue perspective. But by amplifying fake information about Brittany Griner, he undermined his own credibility and contributed to harmful narratives about about one of the league's most accomplished players. It's a perfect example of how misinformation can derail legitimate conversations and cause real harm to real people. The security concerns around Griner are very real. She's already dealt with harassment at airports and other public spaces, and the spread of false information about her only increases those risks. When influential media personalities spread unverified claims, they're not just damaging someone's reputation, they're potentially putting them in physical danger. Looking at the broader context of women's sports, Griner's story is unfortunately not unique. Female. Athletes who don't conform to traditional gender presentations often face intense scrutiny and speculation. The difference in Griner's case is the scale. She's dealing with conspiracy theories that have been amplified by major media personalities and spread across multiple platforms. Her impact extends beyond just her personal achievements. She's been a trailblazer for LGBTQ+ representation in sports, becoming the first openly gay athlete to sign an endorsement deal with Nike. She's used her platform to advocate for social justice causes and has been involved in community service throughout her career. The real tragedy is that while everyone's arguing about fake quotes and conspiracy theories, they're missing the incredible story of resilience, achievement, and growth that Brittany Griner actually represents. She's overcome enormous challenges to become one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and her story deserves to be told accurately and with respect. Thanks for joining us today. Check out our other content for more thrilling videos.